The great alien court was filled with light, music, and sharp laughter. Tall figures with shining skin and glowing eyes stood in clusters, whispering behind jeweled hands. In the center of it all stood one human man, plain, simple, his clothes neat but far less grand than the robes of those around him. He stood straight, his jaw tight, but the weight of countless stares pressed down on him like a storm. They mocked him, openly and without fear. To them, he was nothing, just a fragile creature from a small planet called Earth. His name was forgotten in their eyes. They called him only the human, and they laughed because he had married her. At the far end of the hall stood the alien princess. She was beautiful even by alien standards. Her skin shimmered softly, her eyes carried galaxies within them, and her crown caught every light. Yet the laughter around her was not of respect but of cruelty. She chose a human, one noble hissed with a sneer. A desperate choice, another answered. No one else wanted her. Everyone knows she is broken. The words cut through the air like knives. The princess lowered her head, her hands trembling slightly. She had heard these words all her life, infertile, barren, cursed. The doctors had spoken with certainty. She could never bear a child. And in a kingdom where heirs meant power, she was nothing more than a symbol of failure. Now married to a human, the mockery only grew. It was not only her they laughed at, it was him too. Look at him, one alien lord laughed, raising his glass. The human thinks he is a prince now. A king, perhaps? Let him dream. But what good is a marriage without children? Another chuckled. He is a fool. She is barren. Together they are nothing. The laughter roared louder. The human's fists tightened at his sides, but he said nothing. His silence made the aliens laugh even harder. To them, silence was weakness, but they did not see the fire burning in his eyes. The princess glanced at him, her heart heavy with shame. She had begged him not to marry her, not to tie himself to her disgrace. But he had refused to listen. He had looked at her and said, I did not choose you for children. I chose you because you are you. Yet now, standing in the middle of the sneering court, even she wondered if he regretted it. The aliens circled closer, like wolves around prey. They whispered loud enough for the human to hear. Perhaps he does not know she cannot give him an heir. Perhaps humans are too simple to care. Or perhaps he will leave her soon, like the others. The human lifted his head then. His voice, calm and deep, broke through the laughter. I will never leave her. The court fell silent for a brief moment. The words were simple, but they struck like thunder. Some nobles frowned, some smirked, but all eyes turned to the princess. She felt her heart squeeze. For a moment the cruel voices faded, and only his stood clear in her mind. He had said it without fear, without hesitation. Still the mocking began again, louder, harsher, almost desperate. They did not want to believe in his strength. They wanted him broken, humiliated, crawling back to his small world. The human stood firm. His silence returned, but his presence grew larger, as if he was a stone refusing to move in a storm. That night, when the court was finally empty, the princess sat alone in her chamber. The jewels on her crown felt heavy, like chains pressing her down. She looked into the mirror at the reflection of a woman called barren, mocked by her own people, pitied by her enemies. Her human husband entered quietly. He did not speak at first. He only placed his hand on her shoulder. She trembled, and finally, the tears she had held back spilled down her face. They will never stop mocking us, she whispered. He bent down and met her eyes. Then let them mock. Their voices do not decide who we are. Her lips trembled. She wanted to believe him, but years of pain weighed heavy. She turned away, her voice low, broken. They are right. I can never give you what you deserve. I can never give you a child. The human's hand tightened gently on hers. I did not choose you for what you cannot give me. I chose you for what you already are. She looked at him, her heart torn between hope and despair. His words warmed her, yet the fear never left. She knew the court would grow crueler with time. They would never forgive her for marrying a human. When he finally left her side, she stood by the window, staring at the endless stars. Her tears dried slowly, but her heart whispered something strange, something she dared not speak aloud. They don't know what's coming, she murmured, and for the first time in years, a spark of mystery lit her eyes. The palace was quiet at night, but inside the princess's heart, there was no peace. Every corner of the shining halls seemed to whisper her shame. The walls carried memories she wanted to forget, Memories of suitors who once came to ask for her hand, only to leave when they heard the truth. They all wanted a future, an heir, a line that would carry their power. But the royal doctors had declared it long ago. The princess is infertile. The word echoed through her life like a curse. It did not matter that she was kind, that her laughter once brought light to every room, that her beauty rivaled the stars. To her people, a princess without children was no princess at all. And now, married to a human, she felt the weight of that shame even heavier. She sat on the balcony, her hands resting on her stomach as though she could will something impossible into being. She closed her eyes, remembering the cruel smiles, the mocking words barren, cursed, useless. Yet one memory cut through all the pain, the day the human chose her. He had not come with jewels, nor with promises of power. He had come with steady eyes and a simple voice. She had told him the truth, expecting him to turn away like the rest. But he had only smiled and said, "I do not care about what you cannot give. I care about what you are." It was the first time in her life someone had chosen her, not her title, not her crown, but her. That was why she had said yes, even though fear whispered that he would regret it. Now, sitting alone under the stars, she wondered if those whispers were right. The human, her husband, found her there. He sat beside her without asking, as if he already knew her thoughts. He looked at her with the same steady eyes. She wanted to hide her pain, but he always saw through her. "You are thinking of them again," he said quietly. She nodded. "They will never stop laughing at us, at me. You deserve better." He shook his head. "I deserve nothing more than the life I choose. And I chose you." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe his words, but she had carried this curse too long. "You say that now, but one day when the whispers grow louder, when the loneliness cuts deeper, maybe you will regret it." His voice grew firm. "I will never regret you. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever." Her heart trembled. She wanted to fall into his arms, to believe in his strength. But doubt gnawed at her soul. What if he grew tired of defending her? What if he left like the others? As these thoughts plagued her, her body began to feel strange. Some days she was weaker, dizzy, and her chest felt heavy. She hid it from him, afraid to worry him, afraid it would only add more weight to his burden. But the whispers in the court grew worse. Rumors spread like fire. Nobles claimed the human had married her for pity, or perhaps for her wealth. Some laughed that Earthmen had no pride. Others whispered of annulments, of ways to dissolve the marriage quietly. Still, the human stood firm. He ignored the laughter, but never ignored her. When she wept, he held her. When she trembled, he was a shield. His silence was not weakness, it was strength. But to her, every cruel word was a blade to the heart. And then, something happened. It was late at night when she woke, her heart pounding strangely. A pain pressed against her stomach, sharp and unfamiliar. She gasped, clutching herself, her breath uneven. Fear ran through her veins. She had never felt this before. Her husband woke instantly, alarmed by her cries. "What is it? Tell me." She shook her head, refusing to let him see her fear. "It's nothing. Just the old curse again. Go back to sleep," but he did not move. He held her hand, his eyes searching hers, refusing to leave her side. She turned away, hiding her tears. Deep down, she knew something was happening, something she dared not believe in. Days passed, and the strange feelings grew stronger. At times she was sick, at times she felt dizzy, and sometimes she swore she felt a flutter deep inside her. She hid it from him, from the doctors, from everyone. She could not bear the hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope was cruel. But one night, as she lay awake staring at the ceiling, her hand rested again on her stomach. A whisper left her lips soft as air. What if? The thought terrified her, yet it refused to leave. The struggle inside her grew heavier each day. Between the laughter of the nobles, the love of her husband, and the strange mystery growing within her, she felt caught between despair and impossible hope. And when she closed her eyes that night, a single tear slid down her cheek, not of sorrow, but of something she hadn't dared to feel in years. Suspense hung in the air like a shadow. Something was coming, something that could either save her or destroy her completely. The days grew heavier, and the princess could no longer hide her secret. Her body betrayed her silence. She grew pale, her steps slower, her hands trembling as though carrying a weight too great to bear. Servants whispered in the halls, unsure if it was sickness, curse, or something far stranger. One evening, in the middle of a grand gathering, the truth could no longer be hidden. The court was alive with laughter, music and cruel eyes watching the human and his princess. Nobles passed them, their voices sharp with mockery. "Still no air?" one said loudly. "Perhaps humans do not know how." Laughter roared, cruel and cold. The princess tried to smile, but her body wavered. Her hands shook. The lights blurred before her eyes. Suddenly her knees buckled. The golden cup she held slipped from her grasp, crashing onto the floor. Gasps spread through the room. The princess collapsed. The human rushed forward, catching her before she struck the ground. His heart thundered in his chest as he cried her name. The hall fell silent. The nobles leaned forward, their mocking smiles frozen. "Get the doctors," the human shouted, his voice fierce, shaking the silence of the room. In moments, the royal physicians surrounded her. They carried her to her chamber while the human stayed at her side, refusing to let go of her hand. The nobles followed, whispering like vultures circling prey. Hours passed as the doctors worked. The human paced the chamber like a caged lion. Every cry from the bed pierced his soul. His fists clenched until his knuckles turned white. At last, one doctor stepped forward, his voice trembling. "We had found something." The nobles leaned closer, their faces twisted between curiosity and hunger. "What is it?" one demanded. The doctor hesitated, his glowing eyes darting from the princess to the human. Then he spoke words no one expected. "There is a heartbeat." The chamber fell silent. "A heartbeat." The nobles blinked in disbelief. "Impossible," one whispered. Another scoffed. "She is infertile." "This is a lie." The eldest among them shook his head, his voice low. "No, I heard it too." A second heartbeat. The human froze. His chest tightened, his breath sharp. He looked at his wife, his princess lying weak but alive on the bed. Her eyes fluttered open, meeting his with tears. A heartbeat. Inside her, the nobles erupted in protest. "This is a trick," one shouted. "The human bribed them." Another sneered. "It cannot be real. She is cursed." The doctors bowed their heads, but one, braver than the rest, raised his voice. "It is no trick. We have tested. We have confirmed. She carries life." Gasps spread like fire through the court. The princess turned her face away, overwhelmed by disbelief. For years she had lived under the curse of infertility, mocked and broken. Could it be true? The human knelt beside her, his hands trembling as he touched her cheek. His voice was soft but fierce. "You carry life. Do you hear me? You are not barren. You are not broken." Tears rolled down her face. For the first time in years, they were not tears of despair but of fragile hope. But the court would not accept it. The nobles spat their anger, their fear. "If this is true, it changes everything," one growled. "An heir of human blood cannot rule," another shouted. "This is blasphemy." The eldest alien, wise and cautious, stepped forward. His eyes glowed with something between fear and awe. "If she truly carries a child, then this is no ordinary birth. This is a sign. A prophecy whispered long ago spoke of a union between human and alien, a child who would bridge two worlds." The nobles fell silent. Their faces turned pale. The words hung in the air like a storm about to break. The human held his wife's hand tighter. "Let them say what they want," he whispered to her. "All that matters is you, and the life inside you." But even as he spoke, he felt the danger in the air. The court was not filled with joy, it was filled with fear. For some, this child was hope. For others, it was threat. The princess closed her eyes. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "If it is true, then our child is already in danger." And she was right. Outside the chamber, shadows moved. Whispers spread through the empire. If the barren princess truly carried a child, then the future itself had changed. Some would bow, some would rage, and some would plot to destroy what had just begun. The news spread across the empire like wildfire. The infertile princess, mocked all her life, now carried life within her. The impossible had happened. And with it came a storm. Some whispered it was a miracle. Others claimed it was a curse. Many nobles refused to believe it at all. A trick, they said. A lie crafted by the human to raise his status. But deep in their hearts, doubt grew. The doctors had spoken, and doctors did not lie. Inside the palace, the human and his princess lived under constant watch. Guards patrolled the halls. Nobles visited under the guise of concern. But their eyes told another story. They came not with love, but with hunger. Hunger for secrets, hunger for power. Every day the princess grew weaker. Her body fought hard to protect the fragile life inside her. She would clutch her stomach in private, whispering silent prayers. The human never left her side. He brought her water, food, comfort, even laughter when her tears grew too heavy. But outside their chamber, the tension thickened. The council of nobles gathered in secret meetings. Their voices were sharp, their words poisonous. "This child cannot be allowed to live," one hissed. "If born, it will claim power over us all," another warned. "The people will see it as destiny, and our own children will be forgotten." Fear twisted into anger. Plans began to form. Some whispered of poison, others of banishment. Some even spoke of ending both the human and the princess before the child was born. But not all nobles agreed. A few wise and cautious saw the child as hope. A bridge between two worlds, they said. The prophecy speaks of unity, not destruction. Yet hope was drowned by fear, and fear is stronger than reason. The human could feel the danger in every step he took. He saw the narrowed eyes of guards, the false smiles of lords, the whispers that stopped when he entered a room. He knew they plotted, though none spoke it aloud to his face. One night he confronted the princess about it. She sat by the window, her hand resting on her growing stomach, her face pale. "They will never accept this child," she whispered. "Already they plot against us." He knelt before her, taking her hand. "Let them plot. I will protect you. I will protect our child." Tears filled her eyes. She wanted to believe him, but she had lived among her people long enough to know how cruel they could be. "You do not understand," she said softly. "They will not just whisper. They will strike. They will do anything to stop this." His eyes hardened. "Then they will have to go through me." The strength in his voice gave her comfort, but in her heart she knew the truth. He was only one man, and the empire was vast. The weeks passed. The princess's belly grew. With each passing day, the whispers grew louder, the stares sharper, the fear heavier. Some nobles demanded she be examined again, certain the doctors had lied. Others demanded exile. Finally, during a heated council meeting, one elder alien stood. His voice was strong, echoing through the hall. "Enough, the child is real. And if it is born, it will change the galaxy. Perhaps this frightens you, but it is truth. A new age is coming." The nobles fell silent, their faces pale. His words only deepened their fear. That night, shadows moved through the palace. A servant carrying food to the princess was stopped. The tray was inspected, the cup of water tested. Poison. The human suspicion had been right. Someone had already tried to end what had not yet begun. From that night forward, the human trusted no one. He tasted every drink before she touched it, tested every bite before she ate it. He stayed awake long into the night, watching the door, listening for the softest sound of danger. The princess grew weaker, but the life inside her grew stronger. She would sometimes smile faintly, pressing her hand to her stomach. "He moves," she whispered. "He is strong." The human's eyes would soften then, even as his heart burned with fear. "Then he will survive. We will all survive." But outside their chamber, the empire stood on the edge of war. Half prayed for the child's birth. Half prayed it would never come. And in the darkest corners of the court, assassins sharpened their blades, waiting for the order to strike. The prophecy had been awakened. But prophecies were dangerous things. They could unite a world or tear it apart. As the human held his wife close that night, he whispered against her hair, "Whatever comes, they will not take you from me. They will not take him." But in the silence that followed, he knew this was only the beginning of the battle. The night was heavy with silence. Outside the palace, the stars burned bright, but inside, fear swallowed every corner. The princess lay in her chamber, her body weak, her breath sharp and uneven. Sweat glistened on her forehead, her hands trembling as they clutched the sheets. The time had come. For months she had carried the impossible life inside her. For months the nobles had mocked, doubted, and plotted. But now, no amount of whispering or denial could stop what was about to happen. The human sat by her side, gripping her hand tightly. His eyes were filled with fire, but also with fear. He had faced enemies before, but never a battle like this. This was a battle where his strength meant nothing, where her life and their child's life hung on a thin, fragile thread. Doctors rushed around the chamber, their voices urgent. "Her body is too weak," one whispered. "She may not survive this." Another shook his head. And if the child is half human, who knows what form it will take? The human snapped at them, his voice thunderous. You will not speak of failure. You will save them both. The princess groaned in pain, her face pale as paper. She turned her head toward him, her eyes shining with tears. Do not be angry with them, she whispered. Unless you're only afraid, like I am. His hand tightened on hers. You are stronger than fear. You are stronger than all of them. Her lips trembled. If I do not survive. He cut her off, his voice sharp. Do not say it. You will live. Both of you will live. But deep in his heart, fear gnawed at him. He had seen the blood, heard her cries, felt her strength fading with each passing hour. He knew how close death stood at her bedside. Outside the chamber, nobles waited like vultures. Their faces were pale, their voices sharp with tension. Some prayed for her survival. Others prayed for her end. One whispered, if she dies, the problem is solved. Another hissed back, and if the child dies with her, we are free. Yet some could not tear their ears away from the cries within. The screams of the princess were not just screams of pain. They were screams of history breaking, of a future being born. Hours dragged on. The human refused to leave her side. His hands ached from holding hers, but he never let go. At times, her grip was so weak he feared she was slipping away. At other times, she squeezed so tightly it felt like she was begging him to drag her back from the edge. The doctors shouted, their voices frantic. It is not working. Her body is tearing apart. Another cried, we must cut now. The human's heart froze. Cut, would she survive? Would the child survive? He looked down at her. Her face was pale, her lips trembling as she whispered, save the child. His chest burned. No, I will save you both. The doctors moved quickly, their instruments glowing, their hands steady yet shaking with fear. The room filled with light, blood, and cries that tore through the air like thunder. Then, silence. The human's heart stopped. The doctors froze. The nobles outside leaned forward, straining to hear, and then came a sound no one had expected. A cry. Small, fierce, alive. The human's eyes widened. His breath caught in his chest. The doctors lifted the child, a tiny figure glowing faintly, neither fully alien nor fully human, but something greater. His skin shimmered like the mother's, yet his eyes, when they opened, burned with human fire. The princess turned her head weakly, her eyes struggling to stay open. Is he alive? The human held the child in trembling arms, tears running down his face. Alive, strong. He leaned closer, placing the child near her. Look, our miracle. Her lips curved into a faint smile. She reached out with trembling fingers, touching the baby's cheek. A tear slipped down her face, this time not from pain but from joy. He is beautiful. The nobles outside gasped when the cry reached them. The whispers spread like fire. The child lives. Impossible. A new bloodline. Perhaps a prophecy fulfilled. But not all faces showed awe. Some twisted with hatred, with fear. For them, the cry of the child was not a miracle. It was a threat. The humans saw it in their eyes when the doors opened. He knew the battle was far from over. The birth was only the beginning. He looked down at his son, then at his wife, who was drifting into sleep, her strength almost gone. His heart hardened with resolve. He whispered, almost like a vow, they will not take you. They will not take him. Whatever comes, I will fight. And as the baby's cries echoed through the halls of the empire, both hope and danger were born together. The cry of the newborn echoed through the grand palace like thunder rolling across the skies. For a moment, the entire empire seemed to pause. Servants froze in their tracks. Guards stiffened at their posts, and nobles pressed closer to the chamber doors, straining to hear again. The impossible had happened. The barren princess had given life. The human had fathered a child with her. Inside the chamber, the scene was heavy with silence after the storm. The princess lay pale and weak, her chest rising slowly as she fought to stay conscious. Beside her, the human sat with their newborn in his arms. His eyes were red from tears, his hands trembling not with fear now, but with awe. The baby was small, fragile, but glowing with a strange light. His skin shimmered faintly like the princess's, as if starlight lived under it. But his eyes, when they opened, burned with something sharp and human. They were not the soft glow of the aliens. They were fierce, steady, alive. The doctors stepped back, whispering among themselves. One murmured, "This should not be possible." Another answered, "And yet, here he is." The door opened suddenly. The council of nobles, unable to wait longer, pushed inside. Their eyes darted to the bed, to the princess, and finally to the human holding the child. The chamber filled with gasps. Some nobles stepped back in shock. Others leaned forward with hungry eyes. One sneered. A trick. It must be. Another's voice trembled. No, look at him. He is real. The eldest noble, the one who had spoken of prophecy, moved closer. His glowing eyes studied the baby with deep caution. At last he whispered, "The bridge has been born." The room fell into chaos. Some nobles shouted in protest. "This is blasphemy. A half-blood cannot rule. It is an insult to our people." But others stared in silence, awe softening their faces. They had mocked the princess for years. They had laughed at the human. But now neither mockery nor laughter could hide what they saw with their own eyes. The baby squirmed in his father's arms, letting out a soft cry that pierced through the noise. It silenced the room. Every eye turned to him. And in that moment the air felt heavy, as if destiny itself stood watching. The princess stirred weakly, her voice faint but strong enough to be heard. "Look at him," she whispered. "You mocked us. You called me barren. You said we were nothing, but now here he is, our son, proof that we are not broken." Her words carried like arrows into the nobles' hearts. Some lowered their eyes in shame. Others hardened their faces with hatred. The human rose, holding his son close. His voice was steady, unshaken. "You mocked me for marrying her. You mocked her for being barren, but she was never broken. She was never less. And now you cannot deny it. Life has come from her." The eldest noble bowed his head slowly, his voice deep. "Perhaps this is not a curse. Perhaps this is destiny." But not all agreed. A younger noble spat in rage. "No, that thing is not destiny. It is an abomination. If it lives, it will destroy us." The human's eyes burned with fire. He stepped forward, his voice sharp like steel. "If any of you try to harm him, you will answer to me." For a long moment, silence hung over the chamber. No one moved. The human's words echoed with such force that even the proudest nobles faltered. Then the baby stirred again, and something strange happened. The lights in the chamber flickered. The air shimmered faintly, as if touched by unseen power. The child's tiny hands clenched, and a soft pulse of energy rippled outward. The nobles gasped. Some stepped back in fear. The doctors exchanged panicked glances. This is not normal," one whispered. Another nodded. "He carries power we do not understand." The human held the child tighter, fear mixing with awe. He looked down at his son, whose glowing skin dimmed again to softness. The princess, though weak, smiled faintly. "He is strong," she murmured. "Stronger than all of us." The revelation spread through the palace like fire. The barren princess had given birth. The child was no ordinary heir. He was something new, something beyond both human and alien. A miracle, a prophecy, a threat. Outside the palace, whispers ran through the streets. Some called it hope. Some called it doom. But all agreed on one thing. Nothing would ever be the same again. Inside, the human kissed his wife's hand, then looked at the nobles with eyes that dared them to challenge him. "Mock us no more," he said. "Our child is here, and his cry will echo across the stars." The chamber was silent. For the first time, no one laughed. The palace had never been so quiet. For years, the halls had echoed with laughter and mockery. Cruel words thrown like knives at the princess and her human husband. But now, with the newborn's cry still fresh in their ears, the nobles dared not laugh. They only stared. The human stood tall, holding his son close to his chest. His eyes burned with quiet strength. The princess, weak but alive, leaned against her pillows, her face pale but glowing with pride. And before them, the court of nobles, the very people who once ridiculed them, stood frozen between fear and awe. At last, the eldest noble spoke, his voice trembling. "The prophecy, it has come true. A child of two worlds has been born. He is no abomination. He is destiny." Some nobles lowered their heads, unable to argue. Others clenched their jaws in silence, their eyes still sharp with envy. The human stepped forward, his voice strong. "For years you mocked her. You called her barren. You said we were nothing. But today you see the truth. She is not broken. We are not weak. And our child is proof that love is stronger than your pride." The words echoed across the chamber. No one dared laugh. No one dared interrupt. The princess's soft voice followed, carrying strength though her body was weak. You wished for my death. You prayed for my failure. But life has come through me, and now I will no longer bow my head in shame." Her words struck like thunder. For the first time, the nobles who had mocked her avoided her gaze. They looked down ashamed, but not all hearts changed. In the crowd, a younger noble spat in anger. "This child will destroy us. He is a danger, not a blessing. He cannot live." The human's eyes flashed like fire. He stepped forward, placing himself between the noble and his son. His voice cut through the hall like steel. "Try to touch him and you will face me, and I promise you I will not fall." The noble froze. Around him murmurs rose. Some agreed with the human, others whispered fearfully, but none dared step forward. Then something extraordinary happened. The baby stirred in his father's arms. His tiny hand lifted, and once again the air rippled. A soft wave of energy spread across the chamber. The torches flickered. The walls hummed. For a moment, every noble felt their hearts beat faster, as if touched by unseen power. Gasps filled the hall. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed. Others stumbled back in fear. The eldest noble bowed deeply. "This is no ordinary child. He carries both the strength of humans and the power of our kind. He is not a threat. He is a bridge. He is the future." One by one, the nobles followed. Some bowed from awe, others from fear. But in the end, they all lowered themselves before the human, the princess, and their newborn son. The princess's eyes filled with tears. She had been mocked, shamed, and called barren. But now those who once laughed knelt before her. Her hand reached out weakly, and the human placed their child in her arms. She held him close, her voice soft but clear. "They mocked us yesterday. Today they bow." The human stood beside her, his heart heavy with pride. He had endured ridicule, carried her pain, and now, together, they had broken the chains of mockery. Their son's cry had silenced an empire. But deep inside, he knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. The child would grow, and with him would grow both hope and danger. Enemies would rise. Threats would come. But he was ready. He would protect his family no matter what the future brought. As the nobles bowed and the prophecy whispered across the halls, the human whispered to his son, so softly only the child could hear, "You are our miracle. You are our victory. And one day you will change the stars." The baby stirred, his eyes glowing faintly as if even he understood the weight of those words, and so, in the same palace where they had once been mocked and broken, the human and the princess stood victorious with their child in their arms and destiny at their side.